Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. You can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Hello again, everybody, and thank you for joining Kim and I this week on The Wonderful World of Wine, right here on Franklin Radio, WFPR 102.9. How are you today, Kim?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Everything is good. It's
Good.
always nice to sit down and talk about wine. There's always so much going on we'd like to tell our listeners about.
Mm-hmm.
And today we wanted to start with an article that was on a website called Eat This, Not That. And it was called The Most Popular Wines in Every State. And when Kim and I saw this article, we said we kind of had to talk to our listeners about it because we think there's something weird going on with this article. That's my impression I was getting from you, Kim, on this.
That's what I was, trying to get at. There's something a little bizarre about some of these. Some of these make sense, but I could not really find how they came to the conclusion that certain wines were the most popular in each state. Like, what do they mean by most popular? Is it, I don't know.
They said they use Google Trends. That could be anything. You could just, I don't know, search hashtags and follow it by state, who's hashtagging Cabernet, and then related to a state. But going back to this not publication, but this website, over the years, we talked a few of their articles, and I found a lot of controversy, I think, with what they post.
I agree.
I thought this was one that it was interesting and controversial. So I thought we should and say why. So, I mean, they did list every state, and there were multiple states that shared multiple wines, but there were some really unusual ones. And I think, Kim, we should start with Massachusetts, because I'm sure our listeners want to go, well, yeah, what's the most popular wine here in Massachusetts?
Good. That's what I wanted to start with,
right?
too.
So why don't you tell the listeners what was the most popular wine, according to Eat This, Not That, in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, too.
So according to this article, the most popular wine in Massachusetts is Marsala, which, unless everyone is making like oodles and oodles of chicken Marsala, I really found myself scratching my head at this one.
Yeah, I totally agree.
For a wine that, especially when you need to go buy some, is down there gathering dust on the bottom of a shelf generally. Does not say super popular wine to me. I mean, there's great Marsala out there, but I don't think that necessarily means that it should qualify. So that was why I was thinking, like, well, maybe they're doing something with the most searched for, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it is Google related, so that could be popular. A lot of people search chicken Marsala.
I can't wrap my brain around sweet Marsala being the most popular wine in the state of Massachusetts. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. And the other thing I think that's weird about that, Kim, is a lot of people who come into my store to buy Marsala is because they can't find it on the supermarket shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of bigger stores stock it.
No.
So if it was so popular, it would be everywhere.
Right.
One of those things. So
maybe it's the case of people are looking for it and can't find it in a store, and so therefore are Googling the wine to see either what it is, where they could find it, perhaps. I don't know.
I don't know. It's just
sort of befuddling.
The wine world for me is always a challenge to find out what's trending, what's popular, what's coming up that I should know about. So I should make sure I have it to satisfy the customers. So you look at these stories and you're thinking, okay, Marsala, but I mean, I have it. I have different versions of it, but I don't see people running in for it. So that's just the hard thing to be in this industry and try to find out a good source of what is popular. The bottom line is you have to go by your customer base or your region, what's trending or what's popular.
Right. And even within a particular state, you take a really large state like California or like Texas with different population bases, different ethnic background groups, like a lot of variety to the people in that state. And how do you come up with like a cohesive, hey, this is the number one whatever in areas that are really big?
Yeah, let's talk about California, because that was the most popular wine in California. They say it's Zinfandel.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Zinfandel is popular there, but even that, I'm kind of thinking trending Zinfandel trends, it's going out of style. So
Yeah.
being a hip place in a wine hub, I would think Zinfandel, it would be some other strange thing like a Syrah or Mourvedre, something else that's kind of trending.
And there were a number of states that had Syrah as theirs.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list.
I think
Idaho, Kentucky, and Washington.
And the
with
Idaho one
Shiraz.
kind of made a little bit of sense because I was thinking, well, maybe they're growing some Syrah in Idaho. But then I was like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I understood some of the answers for locally grown grapes. Like there was a lot of, I believe it was muscadine,
Yeah.
which I know when I used to be working retail and we would have tourists come up from the south and they would always be looking for this grape variety. I'm like, we don't have any of that here in Massachusetts. I'm really sorry. So I do believe that there is popularity for those wines that are made from locally grown grapes. But yeah, some of these other ones. But I can't imagine that would make it like the most popular wine in the entire state.
Yeah, that was Alabama and Alaska. And that was really the only, I would say, unique varietal. Other than the one that stood out for me was Ohio and Oklahoma ice wine. They said was the most popular. And to be where they're located, especially Oklahoma.
Yeah,
I wouldn't see why that would be the big thing.
Yeah. Like you would think ice wine for places where it grows, like upstate New York or Michigan.
Yeah, New York even.
Yeah.
What else?
I think it would have helped if we knew what they were basing their criteria on.
Yeah.
Were you able to do any digging? And
well, they just said use the Google trending. And I mean, myself personally, I use Google. You can use a feature in Google where you can put in certain hashtags or fields. Like I search wine and food, and every day it sends me an email of topics based on that. So I would assume you could add, the state of Massachusetts wine and then see everything that populates for whatever amount of time. And if certain things are hitting, you would say it's trending. It wouldn't take much to, I don't know if scientifically it's good data, but I can see how you could pick stuff off of Google to make a story like this.
Yeah. Maybe they were doing it for for it being a little outlandish.
Yeah. But they did have 2 Pinot Grigio and Moscato were in 8 states each. So that made sense to me because Moscato is very popular in a lot of the states, what I would call like a hot state or
warm climate states. Yeah. Places where having a nice glass of cool wine sounds pretty nice.
Yeah. So I thought those might have been accurate. I'm trying to look at what other weird ones we haven't talked about. Oregon, Gamay grape.
I mean, unless they're super ahead of the curve and really trendy.
And only one state, Kim, had Cabernet trending, and that was New Jersey.
And I didn't see any Chardonnay, did you?
Chardonnay, I'm looking down the list. You're right, I don't see Chard. I see Rosé, I see, Chablis in Delaware,
that's true. There was one for Chablis.
Which was kind of a far-fetched as well.
Again, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I love a glass of Chablis, but I don't think that it's trending as far as the most popular wine in any particular state.
And Chianti from Minnesota was kind of a strange thing. A lot of Riesling in Michigan, Montana, Nebraska. So that could be okay, I guess. And only 2 states for Merlot, Illinois and Nevada. So our popular Merlot is not as popular as we thought it would be. I'm trying to find Rhode Island. Oh, Rhode Island was strange too. We didn't. You thought Marcella was strange from Mass and New Hampshire. Did you see the Rhode Island?
No, I don't remember what Rhode Island was. What was it?
Madeira,
Ah, okay.
and that's the only state. Now you would think Marsala in Rhode Island more than
Yeah.
Madeira, but that is very strange. Very strange. None had port, and only one state had rosé.
And there were a
which was
couple of
South Carolina.
sherries.
Yeah, Sherry. Where was Sherry?
I think sherry was Hawaii.
Oh, yeah, Sherry was Colorado, Hawaii, New Mexico, and Wisconsin. So that's out there too. So
Are we sure this didn't come out on April Fool's Day?
yeah, yeah, you can get tricked by that, but yeah. So eat this, not that, and they just came out with another article. I won't even waste our listeners' time talking about or bringing it up, but they had an whole article about how sulfites cause headaches.
Oh God,
And
did they really?
yeah, and we've talked about that a million times. So then after I saw that, I'm like, oh, I remember we were going to talk about another story and the most popular wine. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no. So
Well,
now I kind of know.
Maybe we need to not use
Yeah.
their articles
So
anymore.
for our listeners, if they want some good laughs, maybe go to Eat This, Not That, and tell us what you think. If
Yeah,
it's
have a good
real
chuckle.
stuff. Yeah.
With your Massachusetts Marsala. You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine, and we are your hosts, Mark and Kim. You can find more information about Mark on his website, franklinliquors.com, and more information about myself at commonwealthwineschool.com. And as always, you can find us on Franklin Radio, WFPR 102.9 FM. Welcome back to The Wonderful World of Wine. Our next article is about something that I think I would really like to see as a new trend in the wine industry. It certainly is something that is a part of beer culture already, and that is using refillable bottles. So you would bring your own bottle with you to a shop, and they would refill your bottle with wine. And this apparently is a thing that is starting to happen in England. And I know that it's a longstanding tradition in more wine drinking countries like Italy and France. So maybe it will eventually get to us across the pond here.
Yeah, I remember as a kid bringing milk jugs and initially what they used to call bar bottle beer used to bring back for refilling. And then the old Coke bottles and soda bottles used to bring. Yeah.
Bar bottled beer? What do you mean? What is that?
Bar bottle. Well, they used to only sell certain packages in bar rooms. Like you would have a solid case that the bottles would go back in for the bar rooms. And you could sell them in the retail stores as well. And they would be collected and refilled. This was before the bottle bill, before you returned any glass.
Oh.
They call them bar bottles. But we did it with milk. And Coke, soda. I remember bringing Simpson Springs back like that when I was a kid.
So instead of recycling your glass, you would just get it refilled with your beverage of choice.
Right. And this whole article, it was a blog, I believe, Gourmet on the Road, talking about the sustainability issue with this. So they were saying 50% of the carbon footprint is from making the glass bottle. 1 pound of CO2 is emitted per one 750 milliliter bottle, which is high. And only 30% of the wine bottles get recycled right now. And this is one thing. I was just meeting with State Rep Roy in Massachusetts here, where Massachusetts wants to expand the bottle bill to include wine bottles and liquor bottles because they know.
I had heard water bottles. I hadn't heard wine bottles.
Water, juice, expand it and double the deposit because they're not getting enough back for recycling. If you put your bottles in your recycling bin, chances are they're getting just thrown away and not recycled.
Because the recycling companies are not recycling
because they don't sort it right or something. Okay. So they're saying that discarded bottles creates huge emissions, like equals 250,000 cars or 180,000 homes of electricity. And they want to really remove millions of bottles from waste and refill systems to not refill. What do you call it? Trash, right? To
Right.
take it out of the
Into
trash.
recycling and out of
Right.
But trash.
Right now, it seems like there's one company. It's a private company that started this idea, the Gotham Project, it's called. And in Massachusetts, they actually have 5 or 6 handful of wines that your bottles can be brought back. And what do you think of it, Kim?
I think it's a great idea. I think that there needs to be more infrastructure in place so that people can have the ability to do this, but also the convenience of knowing where to go and what they're getting. You know, I belong to a dairy delivery service that does this with their bottles, that you get your half gallon of milk or your cream or your half and half, and you get it in a glass bottle. And then when you're done with it, they take them back and they clean them and refill them and reuse them again. People have their brand favorites, you know? So if you are Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, why not, instead of buying another glass bottle and another glass bottle, and another glass bottle, another glass bottle, you can just get your Kendall Jackson Chardonnay refilled. And then there's so much less waste that goes into that process.
Yeah. And just to be clear, you would buy the wine in a refillable bottle. When you bring back the refillable bottle, but you would still get the same brand, but they would take it back on their end and fill it. So
and I know that's how it generally works for beer too. You know, if you bring a growler back to a brewery, you hand in your used growler and then they will give you another growler of beer, but then they will reuse that one that they have taken back from you after it has been appropriately cleaned and sanitized. Because, you know, nobody wants to deal with a situation of microbial activity in your bottles. You know, everybody wants to make sure that we're all safe and drinking our beverages that have been not infected by whatever critters might be growing around in your dirty bottle.
And it seems like they had the system, they have the technology where it's like a barcode system where you put it back in a bin, you scan it. Once you bring back, I think 8 bottles, you get $2. And then the company gives you the option to donate your $2 to like a national park or something like that.
I mean, we've got a lot of smart people who are inventing really interesting things and new ways of doing things and all of that. And I can imagine that with people having more and more of an interest in renewable, recyclable, taking care of the environment, trying to lessen one's carbon footprint, that something like this, I think, would be really beneficial. And I think it's something that, honestly, that state governments probably should get behind, because I can imagine that there would probably be a lot of red tape in order to implement something like this.
Yeah. Well, independently, they can do whatever they want to say, take it back. It's the same way with like kegs, you know, they're doing that on their own. And then the state really doesn't, they have a registration deposit type thing, but it's kind of run on its own.
But I guess as far as the wine goes, where would that wine be coming from?
Yeah, I mean,
if it's a California winery, are they now shipping wine in kegs, and then someone is set up to? So I think like that kind of an infrastructure thing would be, I think, really a cool thing to see.
The wines they have now, this Gotham project, they started with wine in kegs, wine on tap. So
and they started in restaurants. I remember reading an article about them a few years ago.
And I think they take bulk wine. So they have Rhone, they have Beaujolais, they have Tuscan. I think they source the juice and then they preserve it. And then they either put it in a keg or they can put it in refillable bottles. Well, let me ask you this, Kim. You were talking about the state, and because I'm on that kind of bandwagon right now, do you take back your beer bottles?
Oh, 100% of the time.
You bring them back to the store and you feed them in the machine?
I either feed them in the machine, or we have a donation program through our local high school. You can donate your redeemable bottles and the money goes towards the high school and middle school music program.
Right. And that's
so we do it as a fundraiser.
People don't want to deal with it, so they call someone to donate them or someone in need for them. What do you think is the return rate on a deposited bottle in the state of Massachusetts?
I mean, I honestly don't know why everybody doesn't do it, because you're spending your 5 cents anyway. So, get your money back.
I think they feel they're putting in their recycling at the curb and it's getting recycled.
Yeah. But isn't that how we all feel about our recycling?
Right, exactly.
Like, I think people I really feel like people honestly are trying to do their best. We're told that recycling is the thing to do. So we recycle. And then if we hear that, oh, by the way, think that you're doing a really good thing by recycling, but it turns out that, oh, it's not really being recycled, that kind of hurts because we're we're trying to do our best, We're trying to save the planet here, damn it.
So the actual number is in the low 30%.
Is it really? It's that low?
That gets brought back to redeem the 5 cents.
Oh, goodness.
So the state's thinking is, I'm going somewhere with this. The state thinking is if they double it to 10 cents and expand it to include other items, that it'll go up to 90%.
So is it they think that the extra 5 cents will create enough of a hardship that people would want to get that money back now, or
extra money plus more things? So if you're not a beer wine drinker, you're a juice and water drinker. But now think of if that rate stays at 30%, you're not helping the environment. You honestly helping the state because they're making the money that you don't get back. They get that money.
That's true.
My point now is knowing how low that percentage is in our state, and there's very few choices of wines you can do refilling. Do you think there would be anyone who's doing that low percentage who would want to do a refill system? Don't you think that percentage would be lower? Because you're limited to the selection, number one. I mean, it's not like milk would be, where you get milk.
I think the selection would be the largest barrier that would need to be got over. You have to, I think, really like that wine in order to keep going back and getting the refills on it, which is why I was saying that I feel like it's not going to be something that would be successful until the infrastructure is in place, until it's more than just a dozen different things that you can refill.
They need to have some of the big guys jump in on this.
I think so.
And with the shortage right now of glass, supposedly in the wine world, you would think this might be an option where if, say, Gallo said they're going to come up with their own recycling project where you can bring any Gallo wine bottle back to the retailer and they'll take them back. Couldn't they monopolize the recycling?
Could be.
Because here's where I'm going with that is I'm hearing that there's people like Coca-Cola who are not taking their own bottles back because they do their own recycling. Right. So now if the wine industry said, we don't want you to bring them back to the state to be crushed and we'd rather take them back and refill them, then they can reuse the glass. They can save on the glass. And they could make a ton of money doing it themselves.
It becomes a little more of a closed system. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see the benefit, but it can't be just one winery or one company with 5 wines. Because even I don't think retails, I know I wouldn't really have the room to put for every little company that wants to do a refill. Because you'd have to keep the Gotham one separate than
I would think that it would have to be a whole new business model. It wouldn't be something that you would be able to fit into a retail store like yours. It would need to be its own sort of freestanding business.
Another form of redemption, another like machine type of thing you have to put it in. And you said it's already happening in Britain and you've seen it in Italy. And I just read that Coke is expanding their refillable bottles, which we did years ago in like Latin America, Africa, and I think somewhere Southwest US, they're starting to really push the refillable bottles again, which it'll be good for big companies like that. What else did you think, Kim? So you'd be into it, but if you didn't like the wine, you'd be pretty turned off by it, right?
Yeah, I think that's first and foremost what's going to drive it is if people want to drink the wine.
Right. The other thing I thought was interesting, they show a cycle, which didn't make sense to me. So it says like right now, the winery bottles, it ships, it goes to the distributor, it ships. So they're trying to show that there's energy being used from the life of the bottle being made. But to me, when you return it or refill, it's still the same amount. The bottle still has to be picked up, right? It has to be filled, has to be returned. So that cycle of energy to transport it, I don't see
Yeah, so the
changing.
transport one is still there, but the
Right.
crushing of the glass, the firing of the bottles, like all of
Energy
the remaking
supplies.
of the glass doesn't have to happen.
Right. And they were using that as an example to show the benefit of it, showing the cycle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they did have a good stat about US consumers saying that we consume 3.2 gallons per year, and then 4.3 billion single-use bottles are used every year, and only 1/3 of that thrown away is recycled.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
wild.
I mean, you're talking huge amounts of glass.
Yeah.
Huge. I'm surprised. I would think so. Your wine bottles you throw in recycling, right, at the curb?
Mm-hmm. What else can we do with them?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and it's a waste, I guess, right?
I just hope that my recycling company actually recycles them.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take next time we should record when our bins get dumped. So we can, you know,
It's awfully
imagine.
noisy.
Yeah, a lot of clanging in my house.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening to us today on The Wonderful World of Wine. We have been your hosts, Kim Simone and Mark Lindsay. You can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine, and our past episodes are on SoundCloud and iTunes. Cheers.